before I don't know how many of y'all are taking the binder I gave you to start with, got questions in it, and actually working on them and filling them out, whatever. But I do want to call your attention to Sunday's class. It's Luke 12, the first 21 verses. 21 verses is all it is. All right. Here are the questions for those 21 verses. If you don't have a copy, let me know, and I'll send you a link to them this week in text or something. Number one, define hypocrisy. And why is that hypocrisy sinful? So we're going to talk about that Sunday morning. And then Jesus says, confess me or deny me. Confess me before men and deny me. So what does it mean to confess him before men? Not just verbally at baptism, but what does it mean to confess before men? And how can I deny it, even in my actions? So we need to talk about that. What does it mean to blaspheme? What does it mean to blaspheme the Holy Spirit? That'll be in our text for next time to look at. Why did Jesus tell us to beware of covetousness? Covetousness is one of the 10 commandments originally. Go back and look at that. Next thing here says there's a list of things to not covet back in the original 10 commandments. So go back and look at that and see what's in there. And then the rich man had all his crops. I'm going to turn my barn to the bigger ones. What was his problem? You sum his problem up in one word, really. So think about him. So we got a lot of things. We got hypocrisy. We got confessing or denying Jesus. We got blaspheming. We got covetousness. And we got this rich man that's got his problems all coming up Sunday morning as in those 21 verses. So do some prep work on that, if you would, and be ready to talk about some of those things come Sunday. Okay. I hate to turn around and look, not face y'all and talk, but I don't know why the monitor turned on, it comes up and says no signal, goes right back off. I went up to it, we got all the wires, didn't have any, so I tried to fix it. All right, we're over in Luke 10, and we're doing a section in here we talked about Sunday morning that probably fits parallel to what we did in John earlier as far as time frames concerned. And it didn't give any places. Luke just goes from one story to the other, but didn't say this happened here or something. Some places he does. Just near to Jerusalem, outside Jerusalem, going to Jerusalem, things like that. So piece it together, but somewhere around that, maybe go up to Galilee some. So just keep that in mind to bounce around here. The time frame, somewhere between the October feast and that Hanukkah, the feast in December. So in that 4 to 6 months out from the crucifixion, it's kind of where we are now in these stories in Luke. So I want to go back to the one on the Good Samaritan. So we kind of wound up with that one at the end in a hurry a little bit and talk about that for just a minute with that. Let me read you a couple of pieces here. So this parable was given by the Master, Jesus, in response to a question, who is my neighbor? And if Jesus had nothing else in mind except to answer that question, he might have said, every human being is my neighbor. If he's in need, I have the ability to help him, whatever it costs me. The mistake of the lawyer lay in his restrictive view of what he had in regard to the identity of his neighbor. So Jesus, remember, he used the priest, the Levite, and the Samaritan. So who is my neighbor he's trying to get at? Even the person in need is of another race, another color. If it's need, a result of his own folly, or aiding such one is fraught with danger, expense, and inconvenience. Nonetheless, he is still my neighbor. But it did cost the Samaritan money. It cost him his time. It cost him a lot of things. But he's still Jesus. I said, that's who my neighbor is. It's kind of ironic. I look at the local newspaper, News Courier, online most of the time, instead of reading the print copy. Now they have a little poll survey going type thing. And today it was, if you saw somebody in need, in an emergency situation, would you stop and help? I thought it's kind of ironic. It ties right in with this thing here. 77% of those who had voted so far said yes. It's kind of just an interesting sideline. All right, I want to read you a poem kind of thing that somebody wrote about this Samaritan. It's called The Man Beside the Road. And long ago, a traveler came down the road to Jericho. He fell among robbers who stripped him and left him dying from many a blow. A priest passed by on the other side. He had no time to spare. A Levite glanced at the wounded man, but left him lying there. A human being beaten and robbed, and left by the road to die, and others content to have it so and willing to pass him by. But lo, another traveler came, a man of a hated race. He came to the victim's side, and grief and pity were in his face. He bathed and bound the bleeding wounds of the man beside the road, and on his beast of burden placed a different kind of load. And then to the end, there slowly moved that tiny caravan, the wounded man, the little beast, and the good Samaritan. His time and strength, his money too, the good Samaritan gave, that he might from a cruel death that day his needy neighbor save. My prayer is that I may be like the man who mercy showed in the long ago on the bloody way to the man beside the road. So, pretty good point. All right, going by through this, we've been through this. Who is my neighbor? So my neighbor, how can I show mercy? We talked about these questions last time, or at least show them. Why should I go out of my way to help somebody who's in need? Because he's my neighbor. How far do I go? So, transition to the very last part of chapter 10, Mary and Martha. It says Jesus came to a certain village. We don't know what village, he didn't name it. Like I said earlier, we don't know what some of those places are. But more than likely, if you got Mary and Martha involved, where's it going to be? How about Bethany? Somebody? Yeah. So where Mary, Martha, and Lazarus lived. So, more than likely, that's where we are. Bethany, which is, if you're in Jerusalem, you go down through the Kidron Valley, I'll show you a map in a minute, and back up and across the top of the Mount of Olives. So it's not very far, but it's across that ridge so that you can actually see Jerusalem from there. It's kind of just out of the way from there. So, here's that next slide. Sorry. Okay. So there's the temple, and go down through the Kidron Valley, little wiggly lines, up across the Mount of Olives. And we talked about that Bethphage, they called it in the video last week. It's also pronounced Bethphage, like Phphage, and across down to Bethany. So 1 mile here. So it's not far from Jerusalem. I think I've read where if you actually go the way you have to go down through the valley and back across, it's probably like 2 miles to travel. But it kind of gets you away from the city of Jerusalem. But Martha's there, and why is Martha doing the serving? Why is she busy with all the housework and the serving and the don't know. Various speculations that it was her house. Maybe she was a widow whose husband had died, so it was her house. And Mary and Lazarus lived with her. That's one possibility. The other may have been that she was a merchant of some kind and had money, and so it was her house. But nothing said about it being Mary. But Martha seemed to be the one that's doing all the taking care of and things like that. But Jesus said she was troubled about many things. She was busy doing the things. Now, is that any way an indication Mary is not a spiritual person? Martha. Martha's not a spiritual person. No, she's just busy providing for her guest, Jesus, like most of you ladies would if he came to your house. You want to make sure you had, when the preacher comes, what do? You fix a nice meal and serve him. You don't get out the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches normally. You fix something nice. So that's what she was doing. In fact, if you go to John chapter 11 and look when Lazarus died, this is Mary and Martha, the brother Lazarus died, and Jesus went there to heal him, to raise Lazarus. They said if you'd been here, he'd healed him, he wouldn't have died. But this is her confession she made then. Yes, Lord, I believe you are the Christ, the Son of God, come to the world. So Martha was very much knew who Jesus was and admitted when Lazarus died very much, Lord, if you'd been here, you are the Christ. You could have saved him. But Jesus went on to raise him a few verses later. So Martha is not a unspiritual type person. She was busy taking care of things there. So it's 1920s, 1900s, 1920s, cooking. So Mary, though, is sitting at Jesus' feet, listening to him teach. And the notation is made that she had chosen the good part. So nothing wrong with what Mary was doing. But if Jesus is there and had time to talk and teach and instruct, where would Mary choose to be? Where would maybe Martha should have choose to be? Okay, it's a choice to help her out. She chose the spiritual over the physically helping get things ready there. So here's the question for us then. How often do I allow other activities, good activities, preparing food and fixing and serving to Jesus, the Master. I mean, good activity. How often do I let those kind of things get in the way of spiritual things I should be doing? Something to think about. It's a good thing. Nothing wrong with it. But it gets in the way of, maybe I got my housework going on, I'm caring for the kids. I just don't take time to read and study and do whatever like I should. So it's good things, but interferes with my attention to spiritual matters. So that's a question that we all can address. Tracy?
Just a quick note now. I think I'm quoting Steve. I can't remember who I'm quoting. But I wrote a quote down about this. Sometimes we have to have the faith to choose the important over the urgent.
Yeah. There's always that thing. It's always, when I was working, it's the thing that's always, okay, you got the things you need doing, routine things. You got the important things. Then the phone call comes in and this becomes the urgent thing, right? So what do? You do the urgent things and not the important things. And that's kind of what's going on here. She had to get food ready. Okay. She did that instead of choosing perhaps the important thing. Okay. There's one sentence here that goes along with that. This guy ends this little paragraph up. He's got said, neither may we allow the physical preparations necessary to ministering, what the author was doing, physical preparation necessary to ministry, to overshadow the ultimate object of our ministry. We can get so busy doing things for other people that we fail to spend our time studying and praying and doing things that we should be doing. Okay. All right, so now we go to chapter 11. Finish that up from Sunday morning. His disciples come to him, and Jesus is praying. He's going out to pray in chapter 11. And Jesus and the disciples saw that, and they said, teach us to pray like John taught his disciples to pray. This is very much a parallel of what's back in Matthew. We've already been through back there. So there are a number of times that Luke records of Jesus actually praying. I mean, just a few of them for you. Luke 3, when Jesus, on the baptism, all the people were baptized. They came to pass that Jesus also was baptized. And while he prayed, the heavens was open. We don't read that. And while he was praying, we read the heavens open when Jesus' baptism. But after his baptism, he was praying, the heavens open. And Luke 5, he withdrew himself in the wilderness, out by himself and prayed. Luke 12, he went to a mountain to pray, continued all night in prayer. Luke 9, he was alone praying. Luke 9 again later, went up on the mountain to pray. So just Luke records just a number of times that Jesus went out to pray there then. The disciples would have known the Jewish prayers. Set, pretty much fixed prayers that the Jews would have used. And now we're all in trouble. I got no monitor and I got no TVs. So who wiggled? Tracy got up. So we're in trouble. I'll wiggle my wires back. All right.
Remember to put the number up.
Yeah. All right. Now we'll resort to the old stuff. I knew for some reason I always print a copy of my slides off and bring them with me. And this is why. At one time that everything else fails. So, get back? Yay. Maybe it'll stay back. I'm going to dig them out anyhow. Okay. I might need them here in a minute. Okay. Had to hurry. Disciples would know Jesus prayed. Also, we've seen the hypocritical Pharisees praying. Out on the street corner, wanting to be seen with their long prayers and things like this we read about. So, here they are with the Jewish prayers, and John taught his disciples how to pray, and the Pharisees pray. They go to Jesus and teach us to pray. And Jesus' prayers were probably different. If they heard him praying, they would recognize something different from these other prayers that they heard. It's going to keep going in and out, I reckon. And just one of the things that Jesus mentions there, and in 1 John, we read about it, always to pray according to God's will, things like that. So there are things where you can teach someone to pray. Okay? Pray according to his will. So there are lots of little things like that if you're teaching someone else to pray. You address it to our Father, eliminates everybody else. You don't pray to anybody. He starts off with praise, hallowed be your name. He asks for bread day by day. Don't fill me with all this stuff. Don't fill my barns up. I just eat enough bread, my day by day provisions. Reminds you back to the wilderness. How much manna they get every day? Enough for today, right? God will take care of you tomorrow. Give enough for tomorrow. So we don't need to worry about having our freezer full down the road. We're going to, praying for the daily type stuff there. Forgive us for our sins as we forgive those who sin against us type thing, which means we've got to forgive others. A lot of passages here we're going to read about that, about forgiving others. Forgive us our sins, cleanse us from all unrighteousness. We spend time with that. Quote from Truth Commentaries, we should observe that these statements are prioritized. If praise comes before petition, our prayers are more spiritual and less self-centered. See what he's saying? You start off, our Father, hallowed be your name. You praise God and get praise and recognize who you're praying to. Then you start your petitions. Okay, I'm going to show you a thing about that here just in a minute. Don't lead us into temptation. Deliver us from the evil one. One of the commentaries said that phrase is not actually in Luke's text here. It is in Matthew's, but not in there. But just think about deliver us from the evil one. Don't bring us into situations that would cause us to have to face sin. Help us avoid those kind of situations that would cause us to sin. Don't lead us. Deliver us from that. There's two little phrases here I'm going to share with you. Both of these were in sermons at Eastside many years ago. It's been a long time. Y'all remember the Canadians that came down and studied with Bob a long time back? One of them preached a sermon that had this in it. I don't remember which one it was, but these two phrases. The kill the snake phrase. And it ties in this point here. If you had a snake, if animal lovers in here, I'm sorry, but if you had a poisonous snake on your front porch, would you go out and take a broom and just kind of sweep it out of the way? Or would you go out there to kill the snake? If you just kind of sweep it out of the way, you go back out the next night in the dark, what this might be there, okay? So what do you want to do with sin? What do you do with temptation? You want to get it out of the way. You want to kill the snake. That's the illustration that was used in that lesson. Kill the snake. Don't just take a swat at it. When sin and temptation comes, don't just swat at it. Get rid of it. Push it out. The burn the boat idea comes from, okay, I'm going out on a boat to an island. I'm committed to stay on that island, to live with it. So how am I going to make my commitment? Sure. I burn the boat. I can't go back. So what I do with sin, when I turn my back on sin and put sin out of my life, think about burning the boat. I'm committed to not doing it. On the island of righteousness, if you want to call it. So kill the snake, burn the boat. That's where those two phrases came from. I better find my slide. I don't need a voiceover. All right. Persistence in prayer. Tracy's going to try to fix it. I got back here, Tracy, I'm going to wiggle all the wires. I don't know what's loose, something is. And this one was not messed up to start with. The other one was. Just the monitor. So, yeah. Let me find where I am so I can pick up, and I'll go from my papers here. All right, the next thing he tells us about is persistence in prayer. Remember the story in Luke 18 when the unrighteous judge, a woman went to him and pleaded with him to change, help her out, and he wouldn't do it. And she just kept being persistent to him, and finally he gave in and did it just to kind of get rid of her. Remember that idea there? Well, the idea of persistence in prayer, we got the things here of ask, seek, knock, kind of progressive. You ask for it, you seek for it, you try to find it, and you knock on the door, not just one little knock, but you knock on the door, persistence type thing. And the idea is, how many times have we prayed to God and asked him for a certain thing? Not just one time, but over and over and over in prayers from this day to this day to this day to this day. Maybe you're thinking about marriage, maybe think about changing jobs, whatever it is, it's just on your mind. You just pray one time and say, okay, God, I got surgery coming up tomorrow, maybe better. And that's it. You're going to be persistent in doing it. Now, how does that compare to the persistence the woman gave the judge? He got rid of her. Why? Because she was a pest to him. Is that how God does us? Does he treat us as, okay, I'm going to answer your prayer, just get rid of it? Of course not. Why do we keep praying to him over and over then for the same thing? Why not just pray one time for something and that's it? What does God want us to do? He wants us to ask him for his help, his children, on a day-by-day basis, right? So it's not like the persistence there is not a nagging persistence. The persistence there is, God, I depend on you. I need you. I'm praying to you for this. It's important. Help me out with it. Get the idea? I mean, somebody got comments about that thought there. But that's the ask, seek, knock. I'm going to ask for it. I'm going to try to find it. I'm going to do everything I can for it. I'm going to knock on the door, not just once, but I'm going to knock it until I get an answer. So, all right. There's a little acronym I want to share with you. Some of you may have heard it. If you're teaching someone to pray, think about your kids. Those of you got young kids. Not young, a little bit of kids, but Donovan's age. I'll pick on Jeff back here. ACTS, acts. If you'll start off giving God acclamation, praise, acknowledging who he is, that helps you it praises him, which he wants, but gets you in the mind of thinking who you're praying to. If you start giving God praise. And then you think about your position in relation to him, that's where C for confession comes in. So now I confess my situation, my sins, my this before the one I just got through praising. So it's acclamation, confession, and then I give thanks, thanksgiving, and then the S is for supplication. So I praise God, I confess my sins, I thank him for what he's done for me, I ask him for my needs, ACTS. So, and there are some sample prayers that kind of fit that in the Bible. Just keep that up if you're think about that sometime. Okay, I'm ready for about verse 14 now somewhere. Jesus is casting out demons. And they accuse him of casting out demons by Beelzebub, the prince of the demons. So he had a mute man there and he cast him out. And the mute man then could speak. And verse 15, they accused him of casting out demons by Beelzebub, the ruler of the demons. And they kept testing him on a sign from heaven. So he used the same comparison. We've been through this, I think, on this last quarter or earlier in this quarter, when Matthew recorded some of the same type stuff. What did Jesus say? If I'm casting out Satan, the demons, by the power of Satan, it's like a house divided, you give up. A house divided against itself is not going to stand. I can't be defeating Satan by casting out demons by the power of Satan. Does that make sense? So you take it and carry it on next further. He says a house divided against itself won't stand. Same thing. Think about a family. You get a family in squabbles, fighting against one another, what's going to happen? Well, nothing good, right? You get a church congregation fighting against one another, what's going to come out of it? Well, nothing good. It's going out dividing and falling. And so that's the whole principle here. Jesus used that thing. I can't be casting out Beelzebub by Beelzebub. I can't be casting out demons by the power of Satan. It just doesn't make sense. It's all there. Then it comes down and the man is, when the demon's cast out, there's a void there. It's got to be filled with something. And that void's not filled with something, then the demon goes, finds other demons, and it comes back in, and things are worse than they were to start with. So when we put the devil out, we got to fill it with something else there. Notice in verse 20, I got too many papers to have a look at now. Notice in verse 20, the phrase there, the finger of God. I want to reference that for just a minute. All right. I got back up. One point I left off. I really want to get this in. Go back to the persistence in prayer a minute. I'm going to jump way back. Sorry about that. The persistence in prayer, we'll talk about a minute ago. The actual word there from the Greek means shamelessness. I am not ashamed to persistently ask God for this thing. So shamelessness. Think about that. The persistence in prayer. The shamelessness there. How many times did Abraham plead with God over Sodom to not destroy it? Over and over and over and over. Okay? And there are other examples of that since I've already passed by it, I won't take time to stop and talk about right now. All right, finger of God. Jesus used that phrase in verse 20. If you go back to Exodus chapter 8, you don't have to turn back there, but I'm going to tell you what it says. Exodus chapter 8 and verse 17. This is Aaron and Moses when they're up against Pharaoh. Verse 17 of Exodus chapter 8. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, struck the dust of the earth, it became lice on the men and all the beasts. Dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. Now, the magicians, these Egyptian magicians, so were their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there was lice on man and beast. The magician said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Same expression Jesus used over here when he talks about it in verse 20. I cast out demons with the finger of God, the power he got to do it. Same phrase is used back there with Aaron and Moses and the plagues against Pharaoh. Okay. I like it better when I can see it up there. Sorry, folks.
Reminds you of how we mentioned several times in the Old Testament, God helping his people with a outstretched arm or a strong arm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
His power.
Yep. The power he's got there. Yeah. All it took back, that was a finger to do these things he's doing, the finger of God. Think about that. All right. We get now to verse 21 and 22. When a strong man, fully armed, guards his own palace, his goods are in place, in peace. When one stronger than he comes, upon him and overtakes him, all this armor which he had trusted in, he gets it and divides up his spoils. What is it talking about? Let me run through some things. Let's think about them. Wish I had them on the screen, it'd be better. The strong man, fully armed. Satan. Picture that. In the court, where all this place has, the palace he has it in, is the whole world. He has the whole world under his control. His goods are the souls of men. So Satan's the strong man. He's got the souls of men. He's holding armor. His armor is the devices by which he enslaves the men. So that's the strong man. That's pictured here is Satan. So who's the stronger one that comes in? The stronger one comes in is, of course, Jesus. The spoils, the souls he rescued from Satan by the Lord. Overcomes the strong man. The stronger man does overcome the strong man. The victory of Christ and the frustration of Satan's devices that he spoiled through Jesus coming. So you got strong man, his palace, but a stronger man comes in and takes over. And the parallel was drawn then of Satan and Jesus' power as he comes in, and he's a stronger man. He puts down Satan. Those two verses there. A lot of stuff here is a little difficult to dig in and dig through. All right, move on. They're still testing him. Verse 23, Jesus says, "He who is not with me is against me." At that time, some woman shouts up in the crowds as about blessing to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Jesus turned around and responded right with it and said, turns his attention away from Mary, doesn't give her any kind of recognition there, immediately turns it away and says, no, it's better to be one of those who would believe in him. It's better to be a believer in Jesus than it is to be his mother, the one that bore him. So the crowd he's talking to there. I know it's better when y'all can see the stuff up here, not just listen to me talk. So they still want a sign. And Jesus says, you already had plenty of signs. I'm going to give you any more signs. He mentions two. Jonah, and we're now down to what, about verse 29, 30, along in there somewhere. Two signs, Jonah and the reference to the Queen of Sheba. Jonah went to Nineveh. Jonah was delivered from death and the pagan people, and because Nineveh listened. Okay? So just a sign, Jesus says, you listen, you pay attention. Where was Jonah? The belly of the great fish, dead essentially, thrown overboard there. And when he preached to the people of Nineveh, they listened to him. And then he said, a greater than Jonah is here. You better listen to me. And then he mentions Solomon, a greater than Solomon's here, referring to the Queen of Sheba. She traveled thousands of miles to hear the wisdom of Solomon. But he says, a greater than Solomon's here. Pointing out that all as great as this stuff was in the past, you need to pay attention to who he is here, which, of course, they had a hard time doing. Then, verse 37, there's a Pharisee that invites him to eat with him. And Jesus failed to do one, what would have been an important thing to them. He didn't go through, not just wash his hands like we would get dirt off. He didn't go through the ceremonial washing that the Pharisees held necessary before you would eat. So the Pharisee looks at him, thinks about it, doesn't like it, can't figure out what's going on, if you would say. So Jesus turns and talks to him. He says, you Pharisees make the outside of the cup dish and clean, but your inward parts, what did this do? You make the outside of the cup dirty and clean, but your inward parts are full of greed and wickedness. See how he transitioned from the physical cup to talking about the Pharisees themselves. You look nice on the outside, but what's inside? Pharisees. It's the foolish ones. Did he not make the outside, make the inside also? He said, rather give alms of such things as you have, then indeed things are clean for you. And he starts this whole series of woes on the Pharisees. Verse 42, woe to the Pharisees, you tithe mint, rue, and all manner of herbs. You pass by justice and love. These herbs and things they had were just little bitty seeds. And actually, from what I read right, the law most did not require tithing in those little bitty things. Now, it did a lot of things. They would give the tenth of this and this and this. In fact, I was reading today that if you took the things they were required to offer a tenth of this, they were offered other things they had to give a tenth of to support the priests and the Levites who took care of the temple. And then once every 7 years, they'd give a bunch more of something else. It would probably add up to 30% of their total income was actually required to be given to the Lord. But the point here is they would take time to dig out these little bitty leaves and count out, one for God, 9 for me, one for God, 9 for me type things. Jesus said, that's fine. Okay, if you're going to do that. But what are you doing? You're leaving off justice and love of God and things you ought to be doing, and I'll leave the other things undone. So don't get so tied up in nitty-bitty picky things that you forget the overall picture of what you're trying to do. What you're trying to do? You're trying to serve God. But you're dirty on the inside, and you picky about these little things here instead of looking at the big picture and serving God like you ought to be doing. Trying to bind tedious parts of the law while ignoring the other parts. self-piety. They were specialists in all these little special things, but they're not getting the big things done. Both the woes. Verse 53. He said these things, the scribes and Pharisees began to assail him vehemently and to cross-examine him about many things. They're getting very fed up with what they are hearing from him because he is putting them down and addressing them in areas that they're failing in. And they don't like it. But like most of us don't like it. So I did want to make mention of one verse. Where's the one, I'm sorry, about walking on the graves? I lost the, which is it? 44. Yeah, what are you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites? For you like graves which are not seen, and men walk over them and not aware of them. Why would he make some comment like that? Graves that are not marked, men walk across them. Well, and the law, the old law, the Jewish law, to come in contact with a dead body made a person unclean. Even walking on the grave made a person unclean for 7 days. He says, you're like graves that aren't marked. You're making people unclean with what you're doing. Unmarked grave. Walking on a grave and not even knowing it. That's the effect you're having on the people around you. So I didn't want to go back, since that one actually went back to the law. You want to point that out. Okay, we got about 2 or 3 minutes left. I apologize. Maybe we get yourself fixed for Sunday here. I know it's better we do that. All right, let's think about something for a minute. Cleaning the inside, we clean the inside and the outside. Think about us. Jesus made this parallel here about cleaning the outside of the cup and the Pharisees being dirty inside. How does that apply to us? How much can I be doing? And it looks like I'm really busy doing a lot of stuff for good. Nobody sees what's inside. I really hadn't cleaned up inside. I'm just doing this out here. I'm kind of doing a commercial here for Sunday morning's class because I'm doing it on the outside, I hadn't cleaned up the inside. What's that called? Hypocrisy, which comes up Sunday morning's class. Okay, and that's kind of like with the Pharisees. If I ain't gonna get them so heavy with their hypocrisy, they look good on the outside, but he says your inside's dirty and filthy. You didn't wash the inside of the cup. You're worried about all the ceremonial washings he's trying to compare it to. But you're not clean inside. You're dirty. And that's just plain old hypocrisy. And that's what we get to Sunday morning. We'll get to that class where we really get the case with hypocrisy. All right. Anything else somebody thought of about tonight's stuff? I don't know what got loose. This monitor went out first. And then, of course, this one had little lines on it. If I let this alone, the lines went away until all of a sudden the whole thing went. And now I know why I always print my slides off before I come to class. Always.